Alright, welcome to another episode of Soto Desperado Plays Ark Survival Ascended. I'm over here getting some eggs. I did manage to make a bunch of saddles for megalodons of decent levels. Can't complain, you know what I mean? But I put my weight back to normal, so I can't just do all the eggs at the same time. I also bred Sundance here, who is 413 base, so I got him leveled up partially, just to have him. And I also made a saddle. His saddle is 352.7, just to have that little mount. These are the parents. I got to put them away. So I was gonna watch one of the Anton Daniels show, and this is Anton Daniels, the Millionaire Morning Show. It says layoffs are coming. Government employees should be afraid after Trump. Private be scared now. Private people. All right.
What's going on is Anton from AntonDaniels.com.
There we go.
I appreciate you guys for continuing to rock with me. Just gassing up for the week. And I got to go and check out a property, the development of a property currently. They're supposed to be done with the poured walls, but we're going to go and see that in a minute. But not really talking about that. I want to kick it with you guys really quick about what's about to happen in the economy. There's going to be more pain prior to Trump getting into office. This is my perspective. This is what my analysis is. I believe that there's going to be more pain prior to Trump getting into office. There's going to be exponentially more layoffs. Companies are going to get leaner. They're going to start leveraging technology more. And then we need to prepare, or us as a people, as a culture, as Americans need to prepare for a reset before an explosion. Now, I always tell people this, and I always have conversations with people on a regular basis, and I say, listen, don't be the one that's playing catch up. Don't be the one with the fear of missing out. Don't be the one that's, investing in industries. Don't be the one that lacks the education that then is able to take advantage of everything that is going to happen that ultimately benefits you. You need to be in a position to be able to take advantage of what's going on. But before we get to that point, I believe that there's going to be a lot more layoffs in every sector. This government efficiency. When Elon Musk said that there's going to be some pain, we become so bloated as a government that when we start to look at these jobs report on a regular basis, and then we have to revise them down because they're trying to act like the economy is booming. The economy has been in shambles for a long time. And one of the ways that they've been propping it up is by basically borrowing from taxpayers to make sure that they increase the national debt and have government inefficiencies by hiring y'all on a government level, but that's not benefiting the economy. The way that you benefit economy is by incentivizing businesses to invest in the economy, while also at the same time, I don't need no receipt, while also at the same time making sure that you invest in small businesses, private equity and stuff like that. The government should not be the main employer of the people. If you have that, then you have a problem. And so you're going to see on multiple fronts, there's going to be some pain and suffering, and we need to have it in order to fix this economy. So you're going to have government jobs and government agencies starting to lay off, and I think there's going to be a huge amount of people that have to start to, make sure that they get their skills set up and reset so that they can get themselves together. I believe that you also going to see small businesses and industries that bet on the Kamala Harris administration or Biden continuing his administration, hoping that Trump lose, hoping that the Democrats succeeded. They are going to also suffer. So, for example, I know Stellantis is, for example, leaning into the Victim Olympics, and now that they have Trump in office, they trying to reset because it's a lot of people that didn't do EVs the right way, or they didn't have a bi-level approach to where you are investing in the things that people want, such as internal combustion engine vehicles and hybrids. And then at the same time, you're still planning for the future because EVs are still going to be coming. We know that because Tesla has the top selling vehicle in the United States of America. And so since they didn't have that bi-level approach, they're scrambling, trying to make sure that they give people what they want, and they charge too much for these vehicles in order to try to put research and development and then take corporate profits, and it's messed up. And so you're going to see a lot of people resetting on that front. They're trying to prepare for the next boom. I think that there's going to be industries that benefit from the Trump administration getting in, such as the automotive industry, but they still want to operate lean. And I think that there's other manufacturing industries. Energy sector is going to be booming. I think that obviously crypto is going to continue to do what it's doing. Don't be the one of those type of people that like to get in and try to make sure to run it up. No, everything you do, you got to invest in the long haul. Everything. Even when it comes to you personally, right? So what I say as far as preparing, I'm saying that, are you educated enough to take advantage of the jobs and the industries that's going to be booming? If you want some level of job security while also running up a bag, I think that you need to get in STEM. Stop getting these liberal arts degrees. When I put up the job and I said, hey, listen, I'm looking and hire people, because I think that the content sector is going to be booming for those of you that can survive and those of you that actually create great content. And I said, hey, I got a high paying job, over 6 figures for this job. Most of the people that even applied wants to be trained. They want to be, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm saying is, do you have the skill set to where you don't have to necessarily be handheld the entire time? It's one thing to be trained on the job as far as what the specifics are, but it's another thing to be completely trained when it comes to all of the software and all of the skill sets. These are things that you should have already been working on. These are things that you should have been leveraging your time for, YouTube University. But so many people get stuck and caught up in just doing what they're doing, and they used to, finessing their way through things, and then ultimately they can get the job that they want, or they can hopefully stumble their way or figure it out and learn on the job and all of that. That's not what this next economy is going to be, whether you're talking about the creator economy, whether you're talking about, tech, STEM field, cybersecurity. There was a lot of people that finessed and, they wanted to just take quick boot camps and stuff like that. That's cool. But see, when the culling happened and the layoffs started to happen and tech sectors started to be upended, who you think was the first to let go? Even if you don't get laid off, and let's say you start to prepare yourself to go up and level up and get to the next level, you don't have the education to be able to take advantage of that, because you didn't go to school. You didn't get your bachelor's degree. You didn't get your master's degree. You didn't actually pick a degree field that or a curriculum that will benefit you long term. And so we always want to take the shortcut. You cannot take the shortcut. And I'm talking about with your investments. I'm talking about with your platforms. I'm talking about with your businesses. I'm talking about with your education. The best way for you to invest in something is to invest in yourself. And if you're not prepared to catch one of these jobs, to take advantage of the creator economy, to take advantage of Bitcoin and all of that stuff, if your lifestyle, for example, is financed to the hilt, and you got Afterpay and Klarna, and you wanted to mortgage your future, and you went on all of the trips, but now you don't have the ability to be able to invest in cryptocurrency or the stock market in particular industries that's going to be beneficial or benefiting off of the Trump administration, whose fault is that? You see what I'm saying? So you have to be proactive, not reactive. I'm telling you, there's going to be a great reset before Trump even takes office. There's going to be a reset, and then there's going to be a boom. It's going to be a reset. It's going to go like this, and then it's going to go like that. And so you got to be able to endure through. You got to be prepared to take advantage of it. And then at the same time, you have to prepare yourself to get rich. And those that heed these words, those that are mindful, those that are focused, they are going to be the ones that benefit. They are going to be the ones that get rich, and they're going to be the ones that run up a bag. Everybody else is just going to be sitting, waiting for the government to do something for them. And so if you got that type of mindset, yep, I think that people are going to be fine. I think that people are going to survive. I think the economy is going to do well. I think that everything is going to go great. But then at the same time, are you in a position to take advantage? And that is the thing. It's not just about, oh my God, can I survive? At some point, you have to get out of survival mode and you have to start to go into thrive mode. And if you can't go into thrive mode, then you're just going to be waiting for somebody to do something for the entire time. I love the Trump administration. I love what's about to happen. But at the same time, I'm not waiting on anybody to give me anything. My personal philosophy is that I want the entire, economy to do well, but I'm not waiting on anybody to do anything for me. So I'm at the site right now, and so we're going to go ahead and check this out really quickly. I'm not waiting on anybody to do anything for me. See that over there? Looks great, don't it? So, yep, everything is going well. Everything is going awesome. I'm not going to walk on the dirt because, Yep, all of the port walls is in. You see the space for the window over here? I don't know if y'all can see that right there. I put a basement in all of my properties. I can see that they actually putting everything, all of the gravel and stuff down there. Yeah, it looks good. Looks really, really good. So everything is going well. That's going to be the basement. The foundation is being poured. And we're going to take advantage of it. And so all of my money, all of my resources goes into plowing it into my investments that's ultimately going to be beneficial for me long term. And then when it boom, and then when everything goes super well, people are going to be looking at you like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Everything. You're just lucky. No, I'm not lucky. I create my own luck, and you can too. So make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Also, Teach Hanley, 40% off your first order plus 20% off of life. And then last but not least, make sure that you guys get your skill set up, get your tickets to come and see me in Detroit December 14th. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to holler at you later. Peace.
Yeah. There you go. Both women are wrong. This lady that's bald right here, this bald lady, she is so full of shit. I mean, I don't know who's more full of shit, this bald lady or Harris. I mean, they just...
Continuing on with...
They just completely make bullshit up and promote it like it's reality. I mean, they're trying to manipulate the whole world and just give all kinds of lies and shit. Nobody wants to vote or have people in power, just perpetual bullshit artist liars. Nobody. I mean, all she did was lie about Trump and make shit up and make it seem like he was a fucking Nazi or something. And it's like, dude, he's a white businessman. That's all he fucking is. He's a white businessman. He's a little sassy. And that's it. There's nothing special about Trump. There never was. When he was just a celebrity, it's Trump. You know, he learned how to make money. He knows how to wheel and deal. That's why I like him. I think a businessman like that is better for the country because he'll be able to manage his shit. He's going to be the boss and he's going to cut some fucking heads. He has to cut some heads, get rid of these people that are wasting money. Anyway, it's another one with Anton. Both women are wrong. AOC pulls up to MCNBC to explain to Joy Reid why Democrats lost election. Oh, shit.
Continuing on with Joy Reid, she decided to have AOC on in order to explain why her voters also possibly voted for Donald Trump. Check it out.
Of all the confounding results in this past election, perhaps the strangest phenomenon was the surprising number of people who voted for Democrats down ballot and then checked off Donald Trump for president. That was the case in New York's 14th district. A number of voters cast their ballot for both Trump and one of the House's most progressive Democrats, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, better known as AOC. And while the Democratic Party is still reeling from the results, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is doing something a lot of the D.C. folks aren't doing, which is talking to social media and actually talking to voters to figure out why this happened.
If you voted for Donald Trump and me, or if you voted for Donald Trump and voted Democratic down ballot, I would really love to hear from you. this is not a place of judgment. I'm not going to like put your stuff on blast or anything like that or dunk on it. That's like genuinely not the intent here. I actually want to learn from you. I want to hear what you were thinking, and I just want to hear from you.
Joining me now is the aforementioned Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. Okay, AOC, what'd they say?
I mean, there's a lot of different things that we saw. I think there's a lot of people. First of all, it's important to note that Democrats, oftentimes when we lose elections, we think that we lost people to Trump. And that is true in circumstances, but they don't look enough at the fact that we also lost people to the couch. Mm-hmm. We have two people that we're running against. So a lot of people say, this is why I voted for you and Trump. And some people say this is why I didn't vote or didn't vote top of the ticket.
Right. Skip the top of the ticket, which, by the way, there's been a lot of paranoia about the fact that Democrats were able to win statewide in some places while Kamala Harris lost. And I keep trying to tell people there are voters who go in and either just vote the top, Trump voters who will say, I just want Trump and don't care about Republicans, and the reverse, who say, I'm not voting top of the ticket, but I'll vote everybody else.
Right.
It's a lot of people that vote Kamala Harris and they just voted down ballot, and most of those people were uninformed voters and they were ignorant, which was one of the reasons that the strategy in the Republican Party, and even my strategy to inform people and arm them with the information, because I think that in most instances, once you know better, you do better. In most instances, once you know better, you do better.
Right. And I think we saw some of that happen as well. But when it comes to people who split their ticket, I think a lot of people cited several different things. One is there is universal frustration in this country. Much of it, I actually think, justified. That is raging at a political establishment that centers corporate interests, billionaires, and puts their needs ahead of the needs of working Americans.
Nope. She got it half right. I was about to give AOC credit, but she got it half right.
Yeah.
People are mad at the political establishments and the media companies that continue to spew rhetoric while not being informed on what the real issues are with the American people. And it has nothing to do with being mad at billionaires. If that was the case, then Tesla would not have the #1 selling car in the world in the Model Y. If that was the case, Tesla would not have the #1 selling car in the world in the Model Y. People are not mad at billionaires. People tend to not trip when other people get money when they get money. People are mad that you're sitting there lying to their face and trying to push this rhetoric, men and girl sports, using the bathroom that you want, pushing this stuff on kids, gender affirmation and transformation, and then talking about reproductive rights when they broke at home. The thing that Democrats really don't understand, and y'all need to get Republican strategists, if they were smart, usually what you would do is you would go and you would hire people from the other party to start having a conversation with you about where you missed the mark. People don't usually care about what other people are doing or what rhetoric is being spewed to them as long as they remain in privilege.
These people do not want to be corrected. Anton's being too nice.
When you get money,
he's being too nice.
People don't trip about who you having sex with. When you get into the bag and you can do what you want to do and you can travel where you want to travel and you can go to the grocery store without necessarily having to check your account balance when you get to the front of the grocery store, they tend to not really care about what women do with their bodies. They just don't even become aware. But when you broke, trust me, I know. When you broke, you start going down rabbit holes and you start researching because you're trying to understand what the hell is going on. You got a lot more time on your hands. You can't go out there and party as much. So now you ending up on the wrong side of YouTube or the wrong side of X or the wrong side of TikTok. And you start to become aware and you start listening a little bit more. You start becoming more informed. And so what people realize is that, listen, you're not going to sit here and smile and keep saying these same canned answers, Kamala Harris, in front of my face. We getting you up out of there. We are getting you. Did you see the people over in Chicago that's advocating for turning Chicago red? They not saying that because they just feel like it, or they just woke up one day and wanted to be a part of the political establishment and switch over to being Republican. They're saying it because they're losing their homes. They're saying it because they see migrants coming in and taking over their cities. They're saying it because they see crime rampant in their communities, and you're removing ShotSpotter while continuing to fund this migrant crisis to the tune of over $1 billion. When you don't have privilege, you tend to start paying attention to everything else that's going around you because you can't help it. You ain't got nothing better to do. You broke. When you got to go and you got to trade in them Fruit Loops for them Fruity Rings, when you don't got no box for your cereal and your kid is like, oh, mama, I'm hungry. And you got to go and apply for food stamps. You ain't never applied for food stamps. That junk hit your pride, hit your spirit. See, some of these people, they ain't never had to go and ask nobody for nothing. They ain't have to go and move back into their parents' basements. They went up, and then they privileged as a result of it, and so they so far removed from it because they don't have the pulse of the American people. But when you ain't helping people, even when you get to a certain level in life, you still have to remain connected. You still got to remain focused. Why? Because you are removed. You do, and your cultural norms and the things that you do on a regular basis, it does not resonate anymore, and you've been desensitized to the things that's happening around you. So the only way that you can stay connected and have a pulse of what's going on in the streets is to participate in the streets. And that's why you have to give back. That's why you got to go do charity work. That's why you got to do give backs online and in person. That's why you got to go and hear people's stories so that you can then help them. That's why you have to have a crew and a community of people that's multicultural, and it has all socioeconomic statuses to where you got to always be helping people at the bottom and the top and the middle, and that's how you stay connected. Because in honesty, in truth, and people don't care about you having money, they care about you telling the truth. In honesty and in truth, once you get past a certain number per month, and you do that and you sustain that for 2 to 3 years, it's over. You will never have the same cultural norms. You will never have the same ideas when it comes to money. You will never see things the same way as everything else unless you stay connected to the culture. And so Democrats don't know this. They think that it really matters about reproductive rights when you broke. It doesn't.
And we know that we can either channel this righteous rage, because there are people whose SNAP was cut off, their child tax credits were cut off, but they're seeing people like Elon Musk getting tax breaks and kissing up to Donald Trump in order to do so.
But they vote for, then why vote for Elon Musk and Donald Trump?
Because she don't know.
And I think that, of course, is the question.
It makes no sense.
They don't know. It don't make sense to y'all because y'all ain't reading the room and you don't know who these voters are. Let me tell you something. You know what the biggest reality check was for me? Was going and kicking it with white people. And I'm not talking about middle-class white people. I'm talking about white people on the fringes. Some of y'all ain't even familiar with that part of the internet, let alone real life. You go and kick it with white people in real life, let me tell you something. I was going to look at a property in a neighborhood around where I'll be building properties and stuff like that. And across the street from a property was a guy that I used to play poker with locally, right? And so we used to, they got these local poker halls or whatever. And so, you get with the boys or whatever and y'all play poker and stuff. And so it's from people all in the city and locally and stuff like that. And so y'all get a local game going. The max buy-in is $200 to $300, no limit Texas Hold'em. And I hadn't seen him in a long time, and he recognized me, and he said, "Oh, man, I remember you. You used to play poker." And I had pulled up in my car, and the car was big. It was a Porsche. It was the Taycan. He was like, "What you doing? I ain't seen you in a while. You ain't playing with the boys, I said, "Y'all still over there playing at 300? And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, all right. I'll have to stop by there one day." I wasn't going. I'm too busy. I wasn't going. And he said, I said, "So how you been doing? How's everything been going?" "Oh, man, it's rough, laid off, just trying to figure it out. Mm-hmm. I was like, trying to figure it out? Yeah, just trying to figure it out. And his home was small. You know, one of the conversations that Rita and I was having was if we can figure out how we can purchase all of the other homes that was around the one that we bought the property to build upon in order to continue to raise the values in the neighborhood. And his was one of the ones that we identified because it was a smaller home that we felt like it would be worth it to go over there and pitch them, wholesale them, ask them if they wanted to sell their home, tear it down, and then build a bigger one and put somebody in it. And so me and my wife as black people are over there gentrifying the neighborhood while taking advantage of this white man who was in his 50s, his late 40s, early 50s, talking about he's struggling. And you know what he had on his lawn? He had a Trump sign. Because he said the last 3.5 years had been the worst of his entire life. And so I didn't want to deep dive too much into it. Because, you know, it's kind of insensitive to be sitting there in a Porsche buying property and evaluating the neighborhood so you can make sure that you're buying it in the right place, while this 40 to 50-year-old white man is talking about how hard it is and how poor he is and how he ain't got no job and he laid off and he's trying to figure out what to do with his life. That's how you know. That's when it hit me like, you know what? These people are so out of touch, it's crazy. They don't know. They really think that them over here pandering is going to get them to vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
Yeah.
So out of touch.
Part of it has to do with the fact that, and I think we're still in a process of going through the data. It's important to say that.
Yes.
And I actually think that it's important to say that the people who are rushing to say, let me give you my grand theory of what's going on right now.
The problem is you went too woke. Sorry, Kamala Harris was running with Liz Cheney at her side. She wasn't going quote-unquote woke.
If we had an election on November 5th and November 6th, you've got an answer.
Right.
Don't listen to those people.
Meanwhile, AOC got the poorest demographic of people in her particular district that she went in elections in.
Agreed.
Do not listen to those people.
Cosign.
So I want to say that we should all have the humility of saying this is an ongoing learning process. However, there is something to be said about it doesn't matter that he's lying. He's saying that I'm fighting for you. In all of this debate that people are talking about with this woke thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's because we care about trans people, and that's why.
And by the way, only Donald Trump cared about trans people because he was the one running $130 million worth of ads. The Harris campaign said nothing about this issue.
That's right. That's right. And listen, the ads, it's not to even deny the fact that these ads were effective in certain areas. What I think people are paying too much attention to is the first half of that ad, which says Kamala Harris is for they, them. Everyone's focusing on that. They're not focusing on the second half of that ad where he said Donald Trump is for you.
Yeah.
And Democrats very often in their messaging, they speak in terms and in concepts and not in the second person. I care about you. And political races are not about one candidate versus another candidate. Too often it gets pigeonholed like that. It is a race to convince a person about who cares about you more.
Let me ask you this question, because we've been talking a lot about RFK Jr. My mind is a bit blown. I mean, we knew that Donald...
They're not reading the room, and they just don't understand, and they so disconnected. It's amazing.
Trump would go wild. There's no constraints on him. He could just put all his friends in. But we're talking about RFK Jr. and the possibility of people pulling back on measles vaccines, on another pandemic happening. You're talking about Matt Gaetz. There's a 17-year-old girl out there terrified that all of her records, all of the witnesses against him in this case where she was trafficked could be in the hands of Matt Gaetz, and he could be the most powerful law enforcement official in the country in a case where the president of the United States is an adjudicated sexual abuser. If you're a sexual assault survivor, you're thinking, oh my God, this country is out to get me. They're out to get me and force me to have children by sexual assault. So the message to women has been insane, okay? And the people he's nominating are TV hosts, etc. Do you think the people who voted for him that you've talked to were expecting this?
No.
Or true mass deportation?
Genuinely. Yeah. No. And it's heartbreaking, actually. It is heartbreaking. And people may want to take like a kind of vengeful stance about this, but it is genuinely heartbreaking. People need to understand that there are people, millions of people in this country, and I was one of them, where you are working 2-3 shifts a day to try to make ends meet. You're not reading the newspaper every morning with a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
You're not. And it's not to say that people are uneducated or uninformed or anything like that. But like, this is real life. Yeah. This is real life. You got a baby on your hip and you've got 2-3 shifts to work in that day and you're just trying to make things work, and you have such an overwhelm of information. And
you know what they own TikTok and YouTube. They're watching me.
I actually think something that is different about this moment than I saw, whether it was 2020 or after 2016, is that almost like right the day after, people immediately were coming to me and saying, he's not actually going to do that, right? And it's important to say, people may often say, he said he was going to do this. It was right here on the campaign trail. If you actually listen to him, if you listen to Donald Trump's acceptance speech, when he talked about immigration, he talked about legal pathways first.
Yeah, yeah. He didn't say...
These people are so out of touch, and it's amazing. I don't even know how AOC is in office, and I don't know how Joy Reid continued to have a job. It's crazy.
Wow. Yeah, they're not really with it. I mean, they're trying to be. I mean, it's almost like an innocent. It's almost innocent what I'm hearing, but it doesn't make any sense to me that people with that kind of position would in any way not have a full comprehension of what the fuck is going on within the proper context. How much fucking common sense do you need to understand how fucked the country is right now? I mean, honestly, how much? I mean, how old do you have to be? How much experience in this life do you need? How many reports do you have to read to sit back and say, we're in a fucked position? And all these fancy liberal things that we wanted, we can't afford. We can't afford to give free sex change operations to, incarcerated people. We can't afford it. It's just too much. It's expensive to do that shit. And we can't do it. That's what I don't personally understand exactly what's going on with that. I think that whole fucking scenario of people getting a sex change on the state, and the state paying for it, it's just crazy stupid. I mean, how are you going to even consider that we can afford that sort of thing? That's just ridiculous. But anyway, I just ate a lot of sugar. I mean, a lot of food. So I have high blood sugar right now. Maybe I shouldn't get into it, but that's just stupid to me. I don't think that these politicians are wrapped around reality. What I'm learning here, thank you, Anton, if you're listening to me. What you're learning here is he's right. They are detached from reality, and they are not. I mean, the AOC girl wanted a poll. And the only reason you ask for a poll like that is because you're trying to clarify the people's perspective because you don't know what it is. You're trying to clarify what a group of people or groups of people are thinking by asking them for that. That's what you're doing. And the thing is, if you know, you don't have to ask. You don't have to assume. Or you're taking a poll to see if there's another perspective to offer here. And in some cases that's true. But how is it going to be? You know what I mean? Makes no sense. Anyway, here's another one. This is crazy. Biden gives the green light for Ukraine to attack Russia with long-range weapons.
Let me update y'all on what's going on, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to have a conversation about this, all right?
President Joe Biden reversing a long-standing U.S. policy involving the war in Ukraine. Biden now going to allow Ukrainian forces to use long-range U.S. weapons inside of Russia for the very first time. CNN's Kevin Liptak is traveling with the president in Brazil. Kevin, what more are you learning?
Like that. You can't do that.
Yeah, this is a major change in American policy, and it comes at a critical point in the war in Ukraine as Russian forces mass in the city and around the city of Kursk as they prepare for an offensive there, and as North Korea has sent thousands of its troops to fight alongside Russia in that conflict. President Biden making this decision to allow Ukraine to fire the American ATACMS missiles inside Russia for the first time. And this had...
All right, so let me give y'all a little bit of a history lesson. All right, and shout out to everybody in the chat. I appreciate y'all, love y'all, and the chat is my co-host for the day. So let me give y'all a little bit of a history lesson of why I consider Bush II and Clinton some of the worst presidents of all time. The reason why I consider them some of the worst presidents of all time is because Clinton, number one, sold out American manufacturing to China and overseas manufacturers, and so they front-loaded all of the wealth and made it seem like he was really successful as a president, but in reality, all he did was mortgage our future, and they kicked the can down the road. So now, what we dealing with in 2024, what they had in the 90s is they front-loaded the wealth, they sold out America, and then what we're dealing with in 2024, what Trump is having to do with Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk and all of these cabinet members is undo decades and decades and decades of issues. So, for example, when you're talking about China and manufacturing inside of the U.S., and U.S. jobs leaving in the steel industry, that all was happening in the 90s and the 80s. And so what they did was they sold out manufacturing in order to say, and this is how they sold you, well, things are going to be cheaper and we'll be able to make things more efficient. Well, basically what they did was they eliminated American manufacturing and they got rid of a whole bunch of jobs. And so now you're sitting here arguing back and forth with me talking about where costs are going to be higher because, you know, they're putting tariffs on things. No, he's incentivizing manufacturers to come back to the United States of America and undoing what has been undone, you know, according to Kamala Harris, all of the issues that we did from previous presidents. Fast forward to Bush, the second one, and that's how I know being a C student, you could be successful because Bush said that he was a C student. He said, I ain't even tried school. All right? He was good at dodging shoes, but he wasn't great as a president. He's one of the worst presidents of all time, objectively. And I know that I'm a conservative, and I know that I voted Republican, but I have to be objective enough to tell you that Bush II, in my opinion, was one of the worst presidents of all time. And one of the ways that they was able to leverage people's emotions in order to stay in power was they literally became warmongers, and they, in my opinion, incentivize the United States of America to go into places that they weren't supposed to be in the first place in order to A, maintain power, and then B, somebody somewhere, a whole bunch of people made a whole bunch of money. So when they tell you that the Democratic Party is the party of war and rich people, they are not lying to you. And I think something much more sinister is happening here, but we'll get into that shortly.
Been the subject of a long-running debate inside the American government about the wisdom of allowing Ukraine this new capability. There were officials who were concerned about the risk of escalation in this war. That's something that President Biden has been concerned about throughout the conflict. You also heard officials worry about the stockpiles of ATACMS. These are not resources in endless supply.
No wonder Russia needed the Lord of War out of prison that they traded for Brittany Griner. No wonder they traded Brittany Griner for the Lord of War. So now we got somebody that don't even really stand for the American flag over here in the United States of America, and Russia needed their general back.
At the end of the day, the addition of the North Korean troops to this conflict certainly has created a new sense of concern in Washington about where this war could be headed. It's a subject of conversation that President Biden has had throughout his trip this week in South America. He discussed it earlier in Lima, Peru, with the leaders of Japan and South Korea. He also discussed it yesterday with the Chinese President Xi Jinping, trying to apply pressure on Beijing, to apply pressure on its largest, or on North Korea, which is China's largest trading partner, to try and convince Kim Jong-un that this was a mistake and that it could put his own troops at risk. But now this decision, I think, certainly for American officials, they do hope that it could help turn the tide in this conflict, but also send a signal to countries like North Korea that it sends its troops into this war at their own peril. Frederica.
All right.
Do y'all know what world war is, what the beginnings of a world war is? It doesn't happen the way that you think that it does. It's not going to play out with, oh, everybody is just going to jump into a war together. No, this is not even how it starts. It started a long time ago when we decided that we wanted to support through proxy meaning that, and the reason why we call it a proxy war is because we say that the United States of America has their hands and they're incentivizing other countries to have their hands in stuff that they should not be a part of in the first place, to the detriment of the world and to the detriment of the United States of America and its citizens. So now what we're doing is we're basically writing blank checks, running up inflation, adding to costs, ultimately putting our troops in harm's way and starting to incentivize and then creating anger towards us. So when J.D. Vance actually pulled up and he was on, I believe it was CNN or it was MSNBC or it was NBC, and they said, hey, why don't you look at Russia as our enemy? Don't y'all realize that is propaganda? They only look at themselves as our enemy because we're involved in things that's against their interests. And so what happens is J.D. Vance goes in and say, wait. That's a strong word. I'm not about to say that they are enemy. What I am going to say is they're our adversary, meaning that they're not people that we hate. They are people that have different interests than us, and so we have to have diplomacy. Diplomacy will allow for you not to plunge in a World War III because it's a zero-sum total, and the only people that lose is the American citizens because the people in power are still going to be there, right? And so while we was paying attention to whether or not they had Meg Thee Stallion on the stage or whether Beyonce was going to be out there endorsing Kamala Harris, J.D. Vance was giving you the news, and he was saying, listen, we have to have diplomacy. We can't sit here and start to call Russia our enemies. And that's why the Millionaire Morning Show will highlight the ignorance, but champion the things that we really need to pay attention to when the information that you need in order to make an informed decision is important. While y'all playing identity politics, they playing war games across the seas, overseas, and giving money over to Ukraine and enabling them to have long-range missiles to make this more of an escalated issue than it needs to be.
When you know more. Thank you so much. Joining me right now is CNN military analyst Colonel Cedric Layton. Colonel, great to see you. So first off, explain what these missiles are all about, this Army Tactical Missile System, or sometimes referred to as ATACMS. Talk to me about what they are, their capability, and why this is a potential turning point.
Yeah, Frederica, the MGM-140A ATACMS, as you mentioned, the Army Tactical Missile System, has a range of around 180 to 190 miles. And what it can do is it can attack things like ammunition depots, troop concentrations, logistical centers, all of those kinds of things that could resupply a front line. So what the purpose of this is, from the Biden administration standpoint, is to actually make it possible for the Ukrainians to prevent the Russians and the North Koreans from attacking the Ukrainian concentrations in Kursk, which is...
And you know what's so funny? Now you got North Korea giving Russia troops. China is more incentivized to attack Taiwan because of the semiconductor chips. Meanwhile, this is what J.D. Vance says, and this is why we have to do our research. J.D. Vance said this when he was asked by the same woman that was trying to give Trump a hard time at the National Association of Black Journalists. This is what J.D. Vance said, all right? This is what they said.
Do you see Russian President Vladimir Putin as an ally or an enemy?
Well, I think that he's clearly an adversary. He is a competitor, but I think that we also have to be smart about diplomacy, too. Yeah. Just because we don't like somebody doesn't mean that we can't occasionally engage in conversations with them. And I think it's important, if we're ever going to end the war in Ukraine, fundamentally at some level, we're going to have to engage in some sort of negotiation between Ukraine, between Russia, between our NATO allies in Europe. And that's just a necessary part. Doesn't mean we have to like it, by the way. Doesn't mean we condone the Russian invasion of Ukraine. But I think that sometimes you do have to engage in diplomacy, even with and maybe especially with your adversaries. I think the bigger problem, Kristen, if we step back for a little bit, of course, we're on the cusp, obviously, of a presidential election where I want the American people to select my running mate as the next president. Whether it's the cost of groceries, whether it's the southern border, and importantly, whether it's the chaos all over the world, I think really the theme of this election is that Kamala Harris broke things in the world, in the country, and Donald Trump will fix it. And if we get back to his steady leadership, it's not just going to mean lower grocery prices at home, it's also going to mean a much more stable and peaceful world.
When you say that he's an adversary, just to get back to the question, you're not willing to go so far as to call him an enemy.
Well, we're not in a war with him, and I don't want to be in a war with Vladimir Putin's Russia. I think that we should try to pursue avenues of peace. I'd also call China certainly a competitor, but we're not in a war with China either. I do think, though, that China constitutes the biggest threat that we have for the United States of America, and I think that we have to be serious about it. But I think we have to be careful about the language that we use in international diplomacy. We can recognize, obviously, that we have adversarial interests with Russia. We can condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and I have, and of course the president has, but we also need to engage in some smart diplomacy if we're ever going to get out of the mess that Kamala Harris has left us in and get back to a posture of peace.
Thanks. Well, guess what, JD? They don't want us to be removed, and I also think that they are trying to sabotage the incoming president-elect, Donald Trump, but they don't want to engage in diplomacy. Do you know that Kamala Harris basically admitted that they've never even had a conversation in over 3.5, almost 4 years, 3 3/4 years? They've never actually engaged with Russia to figure out how it is that they can make sure that they remove them out of this situation so that we can end this. This has been going on for years now. Now we're using AtACMS. Now we've spent probably $1 trillion, and now we're using AtACMS.
This is the territory of Russia that Ukraine has occupied since August. So these missiles are designed to go in and to take out those kinds of things like those logistics installations that I described. And they're designed to do this in a very efficient, very lethal manner. And it's one of the most lethal weapons that the U.S. has in its arsenal. And if the Ukrainians can use it the same way that the U.S. would use it in a similar situation, then it could very much change the way in which the war is being fought right now.
So would there be conditions attached? Might the U.S. have said, okay, we give the green light to use these, but they do have to be logistical locations, like you just mentioned, logistical Russian, targets. Would there be any further guidance from the U.S. on how and what the conditions are in which to use these?
Yeah, I'm certain there is further guidance from the Biden administration to the Ukrainians on this. What they will probably say is that you can only attack those installations that are supplying the war effort against you in Ukraine or in Kursk in this particular instance. So the idea would be, Frederica, that they would go in and they would give them a list of targets that they can hit. The Ukrainians would perhaps provide a list of targets that they would like to hit, and then they would say, yes, you can use these weapons to hit those targets, or no, you can't hit those targets. One thing that would definitely be off the list would be nuclear installations or anything that would affect the strategic warfighting capability of Russia. That would most likely.
This is all bad. It's just all bad across the board. It is bad, bad.
Yeah. That is sticking your nose in somebody else's business, thinking that you're going to back up that kind of shit. Ukraine and Russia are at war for their own fucking reasons, and giving them permission to use our missiles is giving them permission to use our arsenal, which is going to provoke them and make them a fucking enemy. And Russia's an old country. Russia's been around so long. It changed over the years with the Cold War and all that, but those people are old. They're almost as old as China, I think. And I have respect for elders. I have respect for old established countries that have a citizenship or a citizenry that has a culture that's active, that's alive, that's real. Down to earth. I like down to earth people. Down to earth people should make up the world. You know what I mean? They should. And the idea that the president gave permission for that means he doesn't care if he starts a war. I mean, he should know that that's going to make us look like we need to be, considered an enemy. That's what that is. And it's scary as hell. Because you don't want Russia as a fucking enemy. The Cold War thing, everybody was competing back then. And it was about, dominating and spies getting secrets and shit like that. That's what that was about. It had nothing to do with, an actual war over territory. There was no war over territory back in the day, as far as I know. I don't remember any. Not for those guys, not for that area of the world. It was all pretty stable. The governments are always corrupt. Even our government is corrupt. But, it's how you go about fixing it, and trying to contribute to something positive. And I don't know, it doesn't make any sense that they would want to do that, that they would want to be like that. But, I'm just a crazy old guy. What do I know, right? Just a crazy old guy. Let's see, what do we got here? Almost done. All right. So once again, Anton puts it in a good light. Boom. It's the Millionaire Morning Show with Anton Daniels. I love to listen to Anton in the morning. He usually has like 3-4 videos at least in the morning. Okay. Oh, here's another one just popped up 2 hours ago. They're trying to sabotage Trump. Okay.
Trump Jr. is saying, listen, I'm going to be honest with y'all. I'm not going to mince words. I'm not going to be politically correct with y'all whatsoever. I want you guys to know that this administration is really trying to start World War III ahead of my father's presidency, and they are trying to embolden and enable the military-industrial complex to do so. This is what Trump Jr., Donald Trump Jr. says. He says, he said on Sunday, yesterday, that the United States' recent aid to Ukraine is a bid by the Biden administration to start World War III before his father, President-elect Donald Trump, takes office in January. Biden, 81, authorized the Ukrainian military to use American-supplied long-range missiles to strike targets inside of Russia on Monday, a stark departure from his previous approaches that have aimed to de-escalate war. Trump Jr. tweeted that the military-industrial complex is trying to undermine his dad before he takes office by pushing the war further into chaos. He says the military-industrial complex seems to want to make sure they get World War III going before my father had a chance to create peace and save lives. And I 100% agree with him. I 100% agree with him. Let me show what he said again. He said, the military-industrial complex seems to want to make sure they get World War III started and going before my father has a chance to create peace and save lives. Now, think about this for a second and imagine that we had voted for another 4 to 8 years of Biden, which obviously Obama preceded him and Clinton preceded him.
Wow.
Imagine that we had followed you libtards to the polls and voted not in our best interest, and that people that were benefiting from this, because don't get it confused. I am not mistaken even a little bit. Do not get it confused. I absolutely, positively believe that the big donors and the ones that were sitting in all of those suites at the Democratic National Convention, and the reason why everybody is pissed and why there's a civil war going on in the Democratic Party is largely based off of the fact that it's a lot of money that's going to be lost when Trump get into office. And one of the ways in which it's going to be lost is that there's going to be people that was going to benefit and continue to benefit off of this war and the stuff that's going on overseas and all of these proxy wars and the supplying of missiles and weapons and the military industrial contracts and all of these things that continue to benefit everybody else on behalf of the taxpayers, because let's be clear, you're paying for it. So while you think that they're selling you reproductive freedom that they never would have been able to pass to get Roe v. Wade back into federal politics in the first place, in which Trump is saying, listen, I'm not for people taking out babies as a form of contraception, but I am for choice in that y'all can vote on it on a local level and in your state versus this being a federal issue, because we don't need to have our hands in it, while they selling you on something on your emotions. And that's what they spent $1 billion in their campaign for. Really what they doing is cloaking it behind the idea that it's a lot of people that still got to get rich from this campaign and from y'all staying in office. And I need y'all to be there because we're not really trying to pull out of this war in Ukraine.
Goddamn. What a bunch of
You
shit.
don't think that it's people that benefit off of lives being lost every single day and they go to sleep well with no conscience? Watch The Lord of War. Go watch Lord of War.
Yep.
You should
Just
watch
business
it.
to them.
It's
Just
blood
business.
on people's hands more than ever before. There is so much profit that comes from having people fight and kill each other. Look at it on a smaller level. Look at it on a microscopic level and tell me there are not people that benefit from you robbing your neighbor or you killing people in your own neighborhood. Now look at it on a mass, global, worldwide scale. What you think that these guns just get in the hood because they making them? You think that they making guns in the hood? You think they making makeshift guns? Where you think they get this stuff from? But you think that it's not a benefit? Listen, it's the same thing for all of these institutions that stood up to keep you stupid, dumb, poor, and tied to the Democratic Party. When you think about, for example, family court, and women sat there and they got mad at men and they said, why do y'all want to do away with the way that family court is set up? Just pay your child support. Well, listen, that's a multi-billion-dollar industry that keeps so many people employed. And so instead of the market dictating what people are supposed to do, we then need more lawyers and more judges and more money being passed through the system so that administrators and all of these people can get paid just so they can stand up a process to keep you tied to a party that's not going to be beneficial to you or your family long term. And it's the same thing when it comes to every other system. If you want to talk about systematic oppression, then talk about the very ones that you vote for in place. It has nothing to do with some cloak underwords. It has everything to do with the thing that's sitting right in front of your face. They not hiding it no more. They telling you right in front of your face, hey man, we ain't doing that. We ain't rocking like that. And you better go and vote. Follow your girl to the polls and rock out. And we want to take your guns. So you better have a taser when somebody run up in your crib with a switch. You better have a taser when somebody run up in your crib with a switch. Because if you don't got a taser, you going to jail for defending your own property. And if you shot them in the back, you getting double life. And you better hope the next administration pardon you. You getting double life. Eric Trump Jr. is going on to say, gotta lock in those trillions. Life be damned, imbeciles. So now you finally got an administration that will tell you the truth to your face. And y'all sit there and y'all call them racist. You say he gonna take away your rights. Who's taking away your rights? Who's taking away your rights? He said you gotta lock in them trillions. Biden's decision permits the Ukrainian military to use U.S.-made Army tactical missile systems in the Kursk region, which sits on the northeast border between the two countries. The missiles have about 190-mile range and boast massive blast radius, which can be about 1 kilometer depending on the type of warhead. Now, let's just say, for example, something is authorized, and it just so happened to mistakenly go to the wrong location and hit the wrong thing, and it's the wrong button using a U.S. missile. Then what happens? Because I want to revisit this conversation, and I'm going to say I told you so. But by then it's going to be too late and it ain't going to really matter. Everybody that got somebody that's in the military, the armed services, the U.S. Air Force, the Navy, I want y'all to remember all of these libtards that decided that they wanted to keep these people in office. Listen, I ain't even care. You know, it's people that sit here and they say, oh, man, y'all won. What you still complaining about? We not. They still in office doing damage before the president-elect ever coming into office. They still in the office doing damage. They got 2 months left, and all of a sudden, we just so happen to plunge deeper into the war.
They keep fucking everything up.
You got 2 months left. You a lame duck coach.
It really is like a bunch of demons in
Y'all
charge,
ever seen a lame duck coach in the NBA? They just mailing in, or they trying to figure out how they can get their next position themselves to be an assistant or for their next. You a lame duck coach. You know you're getting fired at the end of this situation.
Oh my God.
Now you decide to really, really govern and make sure that they can put themselves in. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't put Kamala Harris as the president of the United States of America before Trump ever take office. Insane. And you got people over here like Guillotine. Elon Musk rigged the election. No more than rigging that 81 million votes that we just so happen to mysteriously see, and we ain't never seen something like that in our entire life. You should be thankful that we got people like Elon Musk who can deploy some level of diplomacy over in China where he does business. Ukraine signaled that it would take advantage of the new stock of weapons within days after months of pleading for permission to use the American missiles amid crushing setbacks on the battlefield. Goes on to say, and this is what Russian lawmakers are claiming. But let's get it from their side. Y'all ever seen letters from, I think it was a movie called Letters from Iwo Jima or something like that? They also tell the story now that the world wars were supposedly ended and we're plunging ourselves into something that we're not supposed to be in the first place. Letters from Iwo Jima was a great movie because it also told us the story from the other side of the people, right? And so they're saying that Biden's decision on Ukraine long-range missiles is a big step towards World War III. Goes on to say President Biden is taking a very big step towards starting World War III by giving Ukraine permission to deploy U.S.-made long-range missiles. This is what they're saying, the Russian lawmakers are saying. To attack targets deep in Russia, top Russian lawmakers have warned. Ukraine has already said it plans to take advantage of the policy change within a matter of days, and it goes on to say this is a very big step towards the war, towards World War III. Vladimir Dvorodkos, the first deputy head of the Russia's upper house of international affairs committee, according to Russia's TASS news agency. Look at them in the office, taking photo ops. Goes on to say other Russian officials, too, warned that the move would spark an immediate response. Goes on to say the West has decided on such a level of escalation that it could end with the Ukrainian statehood in complete ruins by the morning. Andrei Klishkash, a senior member of the Federal Council of Russia's upper chamber of parliament, said on the Telegram messaging app. The apparent decision comes just weeks before President-elect Donald Trump takes office and follows months of pleas from the Ukrainian president to allow Ukraine's military to use U.S.-supplied weapons to hit Russian military targets far from its border. The White House declined comment. No. And so here's my thing. How do you decline comment?
Yeah.
How do you decline comment? How do you not make yourself available to the United States of American people and answer for it? And I want to see all of you liberals. I want to see y'all come to the front of the congregation.
That's called crazy rich people that think that they're not really accountable to the people. Only they would decline to comment about such a fucking stupid move. Only they would be so fucking arrogant and presume that they can do whatever the fuck they want. That's what's going on.
Explain this to us. Help us to understand, since we so dumb and since we made the wrong decision by dragging y'all into this situation by electing Trump, and while Trump was sitting there at a UFC fight trying to enjoy a night off and look at John Jones give him the belt and do the Trump dance, Sleepy Biden and Kamala Harris was in the war room with their hand on the button. So I would love for y'all to sit here and explain to me and give me some insight and information on how this actually makes sense for the American people and for the world.
Good luck.
For everybody that voted for Kamala Harris and the military-industrial complex, tell me why this makes sense, and please miss me with anything that it got to do with Trump. Anytime that y'all explain y'all decisions, I want you to remove Trump from it and just substantiate your argument.
No, Trump is the reason their universe.
Tell me what you can't do with your bodies in a second, and tell me how this makes sense.
We're just reacting to Trump.
There was no immediate response from the Kremlin either, which has previously warned that it would see a move to loosen the limits on Ukraine's use of U.S. weapons as a major escalation in the ongoing conflict. Zelensky, meanwhile, appeared to confirm the news in his evening address, saying that the missiles would speak for themselves. What the flying freak is going on in this federal government? What is happening in the United States of America 2 months, a month and a half before 2020 or 2025? What the heck is going on in the United States of America that y'all, somebody justify it, anybody, please, somebody tell me how it makes sense that we are authorizing long-range missiles deep into Russian territory with United States ATACMS continuing to fund this war, giving them money 2 months prior to Trump taking office. Somebody tell me that. Somebody give me some insight. I'm curious. I'm watching.
See, they did this fucking game with other countries where they would supply arms so that those countries in the Middle East could defend themselves against Russia. So they have a frame of mind where we'll go ahead and facilitate these countries to fight on our behalf and to make us look like we're the good guys facilitating the underdog. But the truth is that can go south real quick, and it makes us look like a warmongering nation, not a peace-loving nation. Either way, that country is somebody else's business. America's not going to go into the Ukraine and establish itself right next door to Russia. You're never going to build a home right next to somebody who's really traditionally opposed to you, especially politically. It just doesn't make any sense what they're doing. They're playing that Middle East game where they facilitate the Taliban or whatever, and those people are fighting these other people. And then they put them in power, and then after a while they get tired of it, and they get somebody else, and they start using other people. I mean, that's like CIA shit. The CIA likes to use people against people. That's how they think.
I don't see no liberals in the chat all of a sudden. They all got something to say. They've been talking tough for the last 3 years. Yeah. Now everybody is quiet.
Because they know they're full of shit.
Everybody is quiet. Shh. We don't have no comment right now. Where Kamala Harris at? She was out there talking about, joy and love and all of this stuff. I would like to know if she's sitting there right with Biden like she said that she does for every major decision. I would like to know if she's laying up with Biden, making a decision on whether or not we should allow long-range missiles over to Ukraine. Curious. Love to see it. Today, many in the media are saying that they have received permission to take the appropriate actions. But strikes are not made with words. Such things are not announced. Missiles will speak for themselves. They certainly will. Ukraine's first deep strikes are likely to be carried out using ATACMS rockets, which have a range of up to 190 miles. And this is how they choose to execute.
Yeah. $180 fucking miles. Jesus Christ. That's like shooting.
Amazing.
That's like shooting it from here to Laredo.
Amazing.
It's like 50 miles more and you're at Laredo.
I hope that y'all happy.
From San Antonio to Laredo.
Let me give y'all a round of applause for the way that y'all go about doing things. I hope that you
it's
happy.
150
You getting
miles,
what you
so-
wanted now.
Yeah.
Now
it-
you
it
get
goes
what you
further
wanted.
than Laredo.
See, the reason why we not so sad about what happens in these liberal environments, such as these small towns, is because you can't sit here and complain about the thing that you asked for. Y'all voted him, or y'all allowed, and y'all justified them stealing an election in 2020, and so now this is what you voted for. Y'all voted for these people to be in office, to be able to have these, the hand on the button, and to meddle in other things and to fund these proxy wars to your own detriment.
Yep.
Now we got to spend the next 2 years trying to massage and fix the situation and put ourselves in a better position than what y'all left us. Y'all leaving us in shambles.
He's right. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. That's why we voted for Trump. Even I voted. I never voted in my life. I never thought it was worth my time. I thought this country's already too far gone. And I said to myself, if I don't get off my ass and do something, we're going to lose the government. We're going to lose it to big special interest groups. We're going to lose it to some of the most corrupt people on the planet. We're going to get involved in wars. We can't afford a war because we can't even afford to live. We are being treated like human chattel property slaves of the republic, which is supposed to be there to serve us, not enslave us, not destroy our life and our lifestyle. It's all corruption and hypocrisy. And I don't have a lot of power, but I voted. That's my only power, is to vote every 4 years. And in another 4 years, I'm going to vote again. And I'm going to keep voting. And that's it. Fuck it. Anyway, you guys have a good one. I hope you enjoyed the video. Anton's really good. You guys, I do recommend Anton. Okay? Take care, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.